The village of Black Hollow had long been shrouded in whispers of mysterious disappearances and unsettling events. Its most infamous tale revolved around an ancient, leather-bound journal rumored to curse anyone who dared to open it. Despite the warnings, the story faded into local folklore, a tale to scare children on stormy nights. But first, will you have good luck tomorrow if you like and subscribe? Elena, a young journalist with a passion for uncovering mysteries, arrived in Black Hollow one misty autumn afternoon. She was chasing a story about the haunted journal for her magazine, a story she hoped would make her career. The villagers were reluctant to speak about it, their eyes darting nervously at the mention of the cursed object. But a frail, elderly librarian named Mrs. Carver finally relented. "The journal," Mrs. Carver whispered, "is hidden in the abandoned manor at the edge of the woods. It belonged to Margaret Thorne, a recluse who vanished without a trace over a century ago. They say she wrote down secrets that were never meant to be known." Ignoring the growing knot of unease in her stomach, Elena decided to visit the manor that same evening. The house stood in eerie silence, its once grand facade now cloaked in ivy and decay. As she stepped inside, the wooden floorboards groaned beneath her boots. Dust hung thick in the air, and the dim light filtering through shattered windows painted the room in jagged patterns. It didn't take long for Elena to find the journal. It rested on a pedestal in what must have once been a grand study. The leather cover was cracked with age, and an ominous aura seemed to emanate from it. Hesitating only briefly, Elena opened the journal. The first page bore a warning scrawled in shaky handwriting. "To read these words is to invite despair. Leave now, or be lost forever." Her pulse quickened, but curiosity got the better of her. The entries detailed Margaret Thorne's descent into madness. She spoke of whispers in the night, shadows that danced without light, and a watcher who demanded sacrifices. As Elena read, the room grew colder. The shadows seemed to shift and lengthen around her. One entry in particular chilled her to the bone. "The Watcher knows I write this. It sees me even now. It hungers for another." Suddenly, a faint whisper broke the silence. It wasn't in the room, but inside her head, a voice both distant and uncomfortably close. "You should not have come," it hissed. Elena's breath hitched. She slammed the journal shut and turned to leave, but the study door was no longer there. In its place was a solid wall of cracked plaster. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of disjointed voices, each one clawing at her sanity. Panic gripped her as she stumbled through the house, searching for an exit. The once familiar halls twisted and shifted, leading her in circles. Paintings on the walls now depicted eyeless figures whose heads turned to follow her. A sickly sweet smell filled the air, making her gag. Then she saw it, a figure standing at the end of the corridor. Its form was indistinct, more shadow than flesh, but its presence was suffocating. It raised an arm, pointing directly at her. Elena bolted in the opposite direction, her footsteps echoing in the unnatural silence. She tripped and fell into a room she hadn't seen before. In the center stood a mirror, its surface rippling like disturbed water. The whispers urged her forward, promising escape if she stepped through. With no other choice, Elena reached out. As her fingers touched the glass, the shadow figure appeared behind her in the reflection, its featureless face inches from hers. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the mirror as it pulled her inside. The next morning, Mrs. Carver found the journal back on its pedestal, as if it had never left. The last page now bore a new entry. Elena Woods, 2024. She came, she read, she was taken. The librarian closed the book with trembling hands and placed it back on the shelf. Another name, another warning unheeded. The Watcher waited, patient and hungry for the next curious soul to dare its wrath. Thanks for watching.